Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
And good evening, everyone, and we are back. Yes, it's time for Paranormal Stakeout, and so happy that you're joining us tonight. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from beautiful Vero Beach, the headquarters of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings. And if you'd like to find out a little bit more about my team and what we do, you can check us out at paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com. We also have a YouTube channel, which is at the symbol Indian River Hauntings 2341. If you'd like to get a hold of me here on the show, send me a message, ask some questions, give me your thoughts. You can get a hold of me at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org and check out all my past shows at the same spot at paranormalstakeout.org. Also, check out all the other great broadcasting here at the X Zone Radio and TV Broadcast Network. A lot of great shows on here also. Tonight, I've got a brother first responder coming on to join us tonight. His name is BRYAN MEISINGER. BRYAN is a firefighter paramedic with over 30 years. He's been serving his community. He got involved in the paranormal about 2010 after a few experiences, but his family has always been interested in the paranormal, so he's looked into it from a very, very young age. As a paranormal investigator, his team always is looking to prove events with a scientific approach, and you all know how I feel about that. His team, US Paranormal Research, was formed in 2014. So with that, I'd like to welcome BRYAN MEISINGER to the show. BRYAN, welcome to Paranormal Stakeout, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so you're up in the cold country, Illinois, right?
Yes.
Man,
Up here in Northern Illinois. Yes, it's not too bad today though. It was about 40. So.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, it was actually not pretty bad here today. I don't think we hit 75. So,
but
no. I'm from Toledo. I'm from Toledo, BRYAN. So right across the lake from you. So I know what those days are like. So 30 years as a firefighter. Thank you for your service, and you're getting towards the end of that road, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, about 17 months from now. Yeah.
Good for you, and I'm just glad you got out in one piece because it's getting tough out there. So
yeah, and same to you for your time.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, a lot of folks hear about first responders in the paranormal and what they've experienced. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got involved in doing this type of work.
So, like I said, a little bit about 2010 is when I really got into the paranormal. But prior to that, I was going to say it's around 2002, 2003. I had an event that had happened to me while I was serving on the fire department. There we had a pretty significant car accident. It was a fatal car accident. And it was Christmas Eve, cold, snowing. We responded to a car, got on location. Car was cut in half. It was on fire. There was a gentleman sitting outside the car, I guess, by a fence post, and he kept rocking back and forth, stating that, I killed them. And I was the captain on the engine. And And I told the guy in the back, the pipeman, hey, there's maybe 1 or 2 missing in the car still. And found one in the car when he put the fire out. And a couple came up to me and said, hey, this gentleman said the other one's over here. At the time, I didn't think much of it, that they were just, bystanders that had come by, but they were dressed not in the right time era, I guess. I call it the Men in Black suit, with the
Okay.
skinny tie, the black suit. And she had that flowery print dress, kind of that like the Eisenhower cut jacket. Didn't think much of it. And I walked maybe 50 to 60 yards down the road. And there's a young man laying there alongside the road with this old blanket on him. And these two never said a word to me the rest of the time. He didn't survive his injuries, unfortunately. But I asked him to stick around, because the police would want to talk to him. We want to get some information from him.
Mhm.
And I turned around and they were gone. And when I asked the other guys on the fire scene, I'm like, hey, did you see that couple that was with us or talking to me down there? Like, you were the only one we saw down there talking to that guy or talking to the kid, helping the kid. I was like, you didn't see the couple with me? They're like, absolutely not. Kind of strange that the police never saw a car leaving. They never saw a couple walk out. And we couldn't find any other footprints other than my boot prints down by that gentleman laying on the road. Kind of a little bit disturbing when you look back on it, that this whole event took place. And then fast forward a couple of years, my daughter was young, had some health issues like any parent, you worry. And I woke up my grandmother standing at the end of my bed, and which was great, but grandma had been deceased about 18 years at that time. So yeah. And I know I'm not crazy because my wife rolled over and said, why is your grandmother in our room? So
Oh, that's
yeah,
confirmation. Yeah.
absolutely. And that led me fast forward to this 2010, I joined the team, and then 2014, I formed my own team. So we've been hitting the ground.
No, you didn't have any events as a kid.
No, not as a child. Well, I shouldn't say that. As a child growing up at my grandmother's house, and visiting there, strange things happen to her house all the time. I never actually saw any apparitions, but there were always cigar smells, doors would open and close, things like that in her home. But if you're young, you don't think much of it. So
It's true, yeah, and it's interesting because so many people talk about their experiences as adults, all followed experiences as kids, but I myself didn't have an experience. I had some of what you just described, but never thought too much of it. But my
mhm.
first event wasn't until I started in law enforcement, so I get it. Do you think, Brian, that it's it's us in our field? Do we get exposed to this phenomenon a little bit more often?
I think that we are in high energy situations.
Mhm.
We see things over a 30-year career that, let's face it, most people shouldn't see. There's things that we're exposed to, and not to pat ourselves on the back, but it takes a special person to do police, fire, EMS, that type of thing, and even military. It takes a very special person and a mindset to do that type of work. I think that with the high energy situations that we're exposed to, that you are probably a little more predisposed to see something or have an occurrence,
Mhm.
which leads to, I think, the more you do this field and you get into the paranormal and you start delving into it, the more open your mind becomes to it,
I
that
agree with
you
you.
are more susceptible to have interactions, to have things occur, to see
Mhm.
apparitions, hear voices, whatever.
Mhm.
I think you get more of that if you've been in the paranormal field for a while, and I'm sure you've dealt with some hardcore skeptics
Oh,
that
yeah.
never have experiences, and I think those that are more open to it are more apt to have those experiences.
Ag Agreed, and it's interesting, like, when this first happened to you, did you tell anybody you worked with?
Initially, no. A typical first responder, it's we don't talk about a lot. And as you know, we have a very different sense of humor. Um, but
Mhm.
it was one of those things I didn't talk about much. I mentioned it to the wife after the car accident on Christmas Eve. Um, And she was like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Talked to a couple other people who've had similar experiences just from other fire departments that I know. And it became a little easier to talk about that type of thing. So,
Well, I know in law enforcement, you didn't dare talk about it because your boss would send you for a fit for duty psych exam if you talked about it. But nowadays it's different. Nowadays it just seems to be different. And TV shows, whatever the reason, it's much more socially acceptable now. And there's a lot more folks in our fields that are talking about it than ever before. So that's pretty significant event, both with your grandmother as well as the accident. So you got into the field in 2010. How did you, and this is good for folks to hear out there, how did you find a team to even join back in 2010 before you created your own?
So strangely enough, I was looking for a group to get on. Had an interest in doing it, and I'd seen the TV shows, and I'm like, okay, cool. But I want to get into it, and I want to see this for myself. I want to learn more about it. I want to catch my own EVPs, that type of thing. Friend of a friend who knew somebody said, hey, I know a guy who has a team out of Twin Lakes, which is just north of me, and gave me his phone number. So I called him out of the blue one day, and I'm like, hi, explain who I am. Are you looking to bring anybody on your team? You're looking for investigators or somebody I said, I want to learn about this, have an interest in it. I'm fascinated by it. He brought me on his team. And then in 2014, his team kind of imploded. He wanted to pursue a different direction, which I can respect. And then, I formed US Paranormal Research on my deck with some friends over some beers and pizza. And we kind of hit the ground running, and here we are, 2024, still doing it. So,
still pretty much the same group.
There's probably three of us. Yeah. There's 3 or 4 of us. 3 of us. I take that back. 3 of us in our original group. And in this field, people come and go.
They do.
It is what it is. And we've gone through probably 35 to 40 people have come and gone over the last 14 years. And it is what it is. Right now, we're a team of 10 people, and we've got a solid membership. We have some really great investigators, some very talented people. One gentleman has some great gifts. He sees things, and I have no reason to doubt him because he's always on target. So that's kind of where we're at today with 10, and always working with other teams too. So
are any of the other ones first responders, cops, firefighters?
There is one other member is a firefighter, town to the east of me, where I live, and I've known her for 25 years, and just through casual conversation, it came up one day. I'm like, any interest in the paranormal? She's like, absolutely. So lo and behold, she came on the team, and she's been with us 6 years now.
Wow.
And her husband recently joined as well. So
okay, all right, yeah. It's amazing how many of us, particularly cops, I'm finding more and more cops are getting interested in this. When we're about ready to take our first break, but when we come back, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your protocols, how you do things, because there's so many groups out there that have tons of different ways of doing things.
Sure.
And I'd love to hear them, have you share what you do. So folks, stay with us. I've got BRYAN MEISINGER with us from US Paranormal Research from the cold country of Northern Illinois. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome to Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson. Indian River County is an idyllic vacation spot on Florida's east coast, not far south of Cape Canaveral. Known as part of the state's famed Treasure Coast, many are unaware of the deep and fascinating history this area played in the development of the Sunshine State. Also lost among its visitors and residents are the chilling stories of the hauntings that accompany this rich history. It is here that a man named Waldo still looks after his family and properties 6 decades after his death. Or a retired preacher is seen digging up his hidden treasure days after he died. Larry Lawson spent more than 40 years in the law enforcement and criminal justice education profession. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Nova Southeastern University and a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University. He serves on the board of directors of the Indian River County Historical Society, is the director of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and is the owner of Indian River Hauntings, LLC, where he provides historical and paranormal tours and events. He has been actively researching the history and paranormal legends of the Treasure Coast of Florida since 2010. Larry is currently the host of Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show on the Exozone Broadcast Network and the past host of Encounters with the Other Side on WPSL Radio in Fort Pierce, Florida. Pre-order your copy of Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson on Amazon.com today.
And we are back with my guest tonight, BRYAN MEISINGER, a firefighter from Illinois, and the director of the US Paranormal Research organization up there. So, BRYAN, we got to know a little bit more about you in our discussion, but I'd like to hear about your team. What is the foundation of your team, the structure of your team, and how do you go about business? And before you go, I caught one thing on your website: applying a scientific approach to the unexplained is your motto on there, and I found that very, very interesting. So tell us a little bit about your group and how you do business.
So again, we're a group of 10 people, and I'm a big fan of a team concept. I like words like we and us as opposed to I and me. And I'm not a big fan of having titles and hung up on titles, oh, I'm a lead or I am a tech guy or whatever. Our team is kind of on the concept of everybody's an equal. It's an equal playing field. Nobody's better than anybody else. Nobody's whatever. So depending on investigations and where it's located or who brings in the investigation, that person is quote unquote the lead for the night. And it's kind of up to them to make sure, the evidence is reviewed in a timely fashion, that type of stuff. As far as like the technical side, we have a gentleman who's very good with our electronics. His name's Andy. He's very good with our DVR system and the audio and the cutting of the evidence and stuff. But everybody needs to know how to use it. Because if Andy can't go, then, I or, Tony or whoever needs to be able to respond and say, okay, I know how to use that stuff. So it's important everybody is on the same playing field.
So do you guys do training, in-service training, that type of thing?
Yes. Yeah. So we will get together every few months. We try to do a team training, especially with new people. And so when we have investigations, let's say it's a team of 4 and we have a new person who wants to come on the team, we'll send that person out with the team, for 4 or 5 investigations. It's basically a shadow or the 5th person, and they will shadow people, whether it be in the command center or the investigations, and just kind of learn how we do stuff. And it also gives us a chance to see if they're a good fit with the team. We've had some instances where, we've taken an individual out and we'll come back and be like, oh, no, that's not an option. That doesn't work for us, this person. And others we've taken out 1 or 2 times and been like, wow, this is a solid fit. So,
yeah. And sometimes they've actually got to meld with your personality too.
Yes.
They could actually be good at what they do, but if their personality doesn't fit, it throws the whole team dynamic off.
It does.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've dealt with it. It can cause turmoil. It can cause a lot of problems. And I hate drama. I hate drama with a passion, and there's no reason for it. And those individuals have to move along. If you're going to cause drama, then I don't need that. We're here to have fun. It shouldn't be stressful to do what we're doing. So that's kind of my logic on it. But as far as what we do and our processes, the scientific approach, our theory is, let's say we always investigate in pairs at a minimum. It's always two people at a minimum. If you hear it or see something by yourself, yeah, cool story.
Mhm.
Two or three people see something at the same time, now you have something that's credible. Because
Mhm.
two or three people saw the exact same thing. Yeah, we use with the different equipment. We have the audio recorders. We use millimeters. We have some REM pods, but we find our best piece of equipment is audio
Okay.
all day long, and your bodily senses. That seems to be the best indicator of what's going on around you, as opposed to a millimeter or REM pod, that type of thing, which can catch interference from outside sources, whether it be a two-way radio or whatever, unshielded electrical, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, it's okay. I'm just moving the cat out of the way. So, yeah, it's one of those things, like I said, and our process with it is, we go through everything, and if we catch like EVPs on our audio recorder, everybody on the team will sit down and listen to it, and we agree upon what it says or what we think it says. And if we can't come to an agreement of, yeah, it's a voice, no, it's a voice, or let's say, oh, it's Larry or it's Brian or whoever,
Mhm.
then we don't use it.
Mhm.
If we can't agree on it, then we put it to the side. And what we do is, at the end of our investigations, we'll put together a jump drive for the client, and then show them what we found, and let them hear what we found, that type of thing.
Okay.
So,
let's take this apart a little bit more.
Mhm.
You found a place. I noticed on your website you call it discovery, investigative setup, investigation, debrief. So let's go to the discovery part of it first. You found a spot. You guys are getting ready to do your thing. What is your protocol in talking to the folks and
so
learning about the venue?
yeah. So if somebody reaches out to us or we find a venue, obviously we don't, just show up, but as much as we'd love to in some locations, but
Mhm.
if somebody reaches out to us, my wife, who's been with our admin for the team, she doesn't really like to investigate, so she does the behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
So she'll reach out to the client and be like, "Hey, we'd love to come meet you and talk a little bit about your location." Myself, my wife, Kay, and then we'll just pick another investigator at random. Be like, "Hey, are you available to go with this day?" And then we'll go out and talk to the individual. We'll take an audio recorder with, and we have a questionnaire that we go through. Tell us about the history of the house, what occurrences have happened. And there's some personal questions in there, but it helps us understand what's going on. Is there psychiatric history in the home? Is there this type of stuff? Whatever.
That's the
And we
big
go,
question.
absolutely. And
Is it,
it's our safety as well. So,
yeah.
um,
Do
and
you
being
ask about drug use?
yes, drug, alcohol use.
Okay.
Is there been a history of violence in the home? Is there, what do you know about the location? And there's a whole question. I think there's like 50 questions on it.
Okay.
So we'll go through that, and we'll sit there and talk with them. And we have the audio recording running, and we always tell them, do you mind if we have the audio running? We always ask. There's a little bit of paperwork we do that protects us and them. We fill out some forms. It's a release form
Yeah.
that says, we'd like to use the evidence. Can we show it on our website? Are you okay with being a public, like, hey, it's Brian's house, or is it house in, Chicago? Keep it generic.
Mhm.
And we always respect their wishes. We're very, 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 very adamant about that. If they want it confidential, we're confidential. And we give them some options. Are you okay with us showing a photo of the interior of the house? That type of thing. Most people are okay with the interior, exterior. They don't want any part of, which I can respect. Absolutely. It's our home. So we'll go through that, and then we'll come back, take our evidence that we have or whatever we found as far as our documentation. And we have a couple people on the team that are historians, and do some digging. I always joke, I don't know how they find the stuff that they find, but I don't ask because it may not be legal. I don't know. But the stuff that they find on some of these locations is phenomenal. So they put together a history packet for myself, and then we pick a team who's able to go. We'll put out an email, who's available to do the next 3 Saturdays or 4 Saturdays in a row, and we'll build a team off of that. The team gets the packet, and we'll say, Katie on our team, you're the lead for the night. Here's your information. Here's your team. Who's picking up the equipment? Who's returning the equipment, and some basics. They'll go out and do their investigation, and they'll spend anywhere from 5 to 8, 10 hours, depending on how active it is at that location. If it's really busy, sometimes we'll ask the client if we can come back and do a second investigation. And what we do is we'll send a separate team to see if the same kind of interactions happen. So let's say 4 can go, we'll send the other 4 that couldn't go, to kind of get 2 perspectives of it, see how it interacts with each other. We'll take the evidence. Everybody reviews evidence, whether it be audio, video, whatever the case may be. They jot down their notes. They'll send it to Andy and I, who is the tech manager. We'll cut it all out, and we'll present it to the team. If we all agree on everything, video, audio, we put it onto a jump drive, and then my wife and I go out and meet with the client and show them what we found. And if they have concerns, then we look into different avenues and see if we can get them some help. We do have some resources for that as well.
That's a great point. And I got a couple things I want to ask you about, but I want to hit on this one. Somebody calls you to their house. They feel like they've got demons that are in their closet that are scratching them and trying to hurt them at night. You've gone there and you do your preliminary questionnaire with them, and you find out that there is some history of mental illness, possibly some drug use.
Sure.
What's your next step there?
So, as a paramedic, do know a lot about those services, and what we'll do is, it's a tough conversation to have with anybody, but I'm very comfortable talking to people. And I'll pull them aside and be like, hey, look, do you need some help? I'm here to help you any way I can, whether it be turn you to the clergy, if you want to do that route. I have some friends who are in the Catholic Church that are willing to help at any moment I can ask them. I also have some phone numbers, whether it be, for drug abuse lines or domestic abuse, whatever the case may be, that I will gladly help those people get that help all they need. As a matter of fact, if need be, I will drive them to those locations if they need it. If it's
service,
we're only human.
And that's what we do.
Yes. And as you know, law enforcement, even fire service and whatnot, we're not wired like most people. We wouldn't be in that line of work if we weren't. And I'd have no problem with driving somebody to a facility if they needed help. Absolutely. If they want me to take them to the hospital, I'll get in the car. Let's talk. We'll drive to the hospital. I'll drop you off and get you help.
Outstanding. Now, how often does this happen? How often do you get cases like that?
As far as let's say, a drug abuse or alcohol or mental illness?
There's.
I got to say, in the last 14 years, it's probably happened once, maybe twice, honestly. That I've actually seen, okay, like, when you talk about the medications and when we ask those questions, and some of these people are like, oh, here's this. And it's like, and as a paramedic, you know what these drugs are. It's like, you need some help. Are you taking these? That's the first question. Are you taking your meds? If not, then we need to address that problem. Because there's certain times.
Tough conversation to have.
It is, but at the end of the day, you don't want them to feel unsafe in their home, and you don't want them to harm themselves or anybody else for that matter. So,
and we're going to talk. We got to get ready to take our next break. When we get back, I want to talk about that a little bit and what teams can do to cause more harm than good. So stay with us, folks. We got some interesting things to talk about. We'll see you right after these messages.
Welcome to Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson. Indian River County is an idyllic vacation spot on Florida's east coast, not far south of Cape Canaveral. Known as part of the state's famed Treasure Coast, many are unaware of the deep and fascinating history this area played in the development of the Sunshine State. Also lost among its visitors and residents are the chilling stories of the hauntings that accompany this rich history. It is here that a man named Waldo still looks after his family and properties, 6 decades after his death. Or a retired preacher is seen digging up his hidden treasure, days after he died. Larry Lawson spent more than 40 years in the law enforcement and criminal justice education profession. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Nova Southeastern University and a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University. He serves on the board of directors of the Indian River County Historical Society, is the director of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and is the owner of Indian River Hauntings, LLC, where he provides historical and paranormal tours and events. He has been actively researching the history and paranormal legends of the Treasure Coast of Florida since 2010. Larry is currently the host of Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show on the Exozone Broadcast Network and the past host of Encounters with the Other Side on WPSL Radio in Fort Pierce, Florida. Pre-order your copy of Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson on Amazon.com today.
And we are back with my guest tonight, BRYAN Meisinger. BRYAN, we're really a heavy subject, and I think it's important. With the advent of the TV shows, people
Mhm.
started getting more open to researching or looking into the paranormal. It became in vogue. It actually became almost accepted by society in so many ways, but it also brought out a lot of people thought it was cool and thought they could have their own TV show or whatever.
Right.
And I think it caused some problems and this is my opinion, made people believe they could do things and accomplish things that they really weren't qualified to do. One of them is kind of where we were at before. My house is haunted. It's scaring me. What can you do to help me?
Right.
And folks coming in, teams coming in and saying they can do things that they can't. Now, as a paramedic, what's the biggest problem you see with a team coming in making claims that they really can't accomplish?
So, as the paramedic side of me, if a team comes in and says, we can open a portal and we can get rid of these demons for you. Okay. If that person believes that and you're selling that bill of goods, you're causing more harm, especially if it's a mental illness. You're
Mhm.
causing more harm. And, if you're telling them also if there's demons there, it's the person's already unstable. And
Mhm.
if that's the case, and mental health is a huge issue, as we all know. Unfortunately, I think it's one of those overlooked issues, unfortunately. But I think you're causing more problems. And if you're telling them there's demons, they're going to dive deeper into this realm of where they're at in an
Mhm.
unhealthy place. And that said, I've also dealt with some teams that I honestly don't know why they're doing this other than for likes and potentially trying to get a TV show, like you said.
Mhm.
I could care less about likes and whatnot on shares. I don't care. Yeah, we have a Facebook page. I don't care if 3 people like it or 4,000. I could care less. That's not why I do this.
Mhm.
And I've witnessed teams. I've witnessed people. I've caught them on film actually faking evidence. It's like, well, why are you doing this? At the end of the day, what are you doing this for if you're faking evidence? I witnessed a team set up all this equipment, thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and they don't review anything. They don't
Mhm.
go through the evidence. They don't listen to the audio. It's like, well, why do you have the equipment then?
Why are you here? Uh-huh.
What are you doing this for?
Why do you think they're doing it?
I
What's
think
your
it's
opinion?
just for the recognition. You
Mhm.
say, I'm a ghost hunter. Oh, well, okay, cool. But I do it for personal knowledge and the excitement of, of catching that one thing that's like, wow, look at that. I actually caught something that's just, I can't explain, whether
Mm.
it be the video or audio. And you've heard EVPs. I've caught them. You've caught them, I'm sure. That
Mhm.
to this day, even years later, I hear that on the audio and I get all giddy, where my wife is like, okay, take a breath, um, but to honestly, I don't know why people would go into this just to fake evidence. I don't know what the end
Well,
result is for that.
and like you said, it can be harmful. I mean, you've seen it from your
Yes.
side, I've seen it my side. A person is going through some sort of, mental issue, could be
Hmm.
narcotics induced, it could be something inside them,
Sure.
and a team makes a claim, "I'm gonna wave the sage around, and we're gonna make, what's ever bothering you go away,"
Right.
and, they're all happy for 3 days until suddenly it starts up again. Why? Because the problem really hasn't been solved, it's in
Correct.
the person that's called you, and I think we lose sight of the responsibility we have when we're telling people what we can and cannot do.
Right.
How do we police that? How do we keep folks from doing that? From telling making themselves something that they're not?
Honestly, I wish I had an answer for that. I really do.
Mhm,
I know at the end of the day that having a good moral compass is huge in being a
mhm.
decent person. And if you literally cannot help somebody, don't lie to them and just tell them, look, this is above and beyond me. I can't help you with this. And I've actually run into that instance one time in 14 years. And to give you an example, we had a house in Elgin, Illinois. Um, very strange occurrences going on, very dark type stuff. Like her daughter would stand in the corner and just talk. And I thought it might have been sleepwalking initially, but listening to the audio, she was actually talking in Latin, which is very strange. Um,
Okay. Did she know Latin?
no, no,
Okay. Had to ask the question.
escalate from there. I went to the house and met with the lady, and myself and one other investigator went, and we heard voices upstairs. And I asked her who was home with her. And she's like, "It's just me and you two." I'm like, okay. I went upstairs, nothing. Couldn't hear anything. Didn't see anything. Came back downstairs, and she had video, by the way, of her daughter. That's how I saw this. Uh,
Mhm.
Came back downstairs, heard a slamming noise, and she had bowls of salt and like lines of salt by the doors to keep things from passing over and whatnot. Went back upstairs, and there was weird writing smeared all over the walls, which wasn't there when I went up there the first time. Which I don't know where it came from. Um,
Nobody had access to it
no, just
while
the
you
three
were
of us in the
okay,
house, and
okay.
I came back down and told her, I'm like, look, there's these weird symbols. She goes, it happens all the time. Went back up when I heard the noises again. It smelled like feces, sulfur, that type of thing. Your textbook smells. Um, the scuttle hole for the attic was vibrating, which I'm like, okay, as a firefighter and guy who does construction stuff, I'm like, it could be a wind draft, it could be a door open, whatever. I lifted the tile up and something growled at me. Um, Went back downstairs. I made a phone call to the local archdiocese. Uh, Gentleman came out. About a week later, we met him there from the archdiocese. Gave him a USB drive of everything we had pictures of and had recorded. His comment to me was, "We'll take it from here. Thank you so much." Pardon me. I never heard another word about it, but there was something very, very dark going on in that home. Um, you know,
Were you ever able to do a follow-up with the family at all?
she wouldn't give me the time of day after that. Um, I honestly, I can't tell you what it was. I don't know what the end result was, but in my opinions, there was something very, very dark going on in that property. Good friend of
Interesting.
mine who did some research found out that it was a Native American burial ground where the houses were built. I don't know if that had any correlation, but some very, very dark things were happening in that house. The weird symbols on the wall that were smeared, and honestly, it
Mhm.
looked like feces on the wall. And I don't know where that would have come from because we were the only three in the house. So,
And it wasn't there when you walked up.
correct, correct. Very, very
Interesting.
strange.
Now, you obviously recorded this data. Did you get pictures too? Take photographs?
I do have pictures of it. She asked me to please not share them,
Obviously,
which
yeah.
I have to respect her wishes. But
Obviously.
yeah, I do have some pictures of the symbols. I did show them to another friend of mine at the church where I live. In his words, it's angelic writing. I don't know what angelic writing is, to be honest with you. I wouldn't know it if I saw it. But I have to take his word for it, as he's a man of the clergy. So he told me it was angelic writing.
See, that's one thing a lot of groups don't do. You went in there, you stayed within your protocol, you knew what the limits were of what you could do, and then you
Yes.
called in the backup sets.
Yep.
That's excellent. Now you collected this evidence, and the reason I was asking about this is, what do you do with this evidence? Now that you've got the pictures, you've got the recordings, what do you do with it? How do you store it? And
So yeah. So what we do is we have a couple. Actually, I shouldn't say a couple. We've got, I think it's 4. The high terabyte, like 3 or 4 terabyte drives. And what
Mhm.
we'll do is we will scan all of our paperwork, and we build a file
Mhm.
that has all the full length audio clippings. It has all the cut audio clippings, any significant video, any significant pictures, and it's all broken down into files within that drive. And what we
Mhm.
do is we back it up on 3 or 4 different drives. I have it, Andy has it, my wife has it, and there's another copy that we back up and keep out of the house at a safety deposit box, um, just so that if one drive goes down or somebody's computer breaks or whatever, we always have a backup, and we're
Mhm.
constantly updating all the drives at the same time.
Mhm.
Um,
And as a cop, I got to ask you, do you have a chain of custody to make sure nobody else has access?
absolutely.
You, yeah, okay.
Yes,
Just,
absolutely.
just
And I'm familiar as an arson investigator years ago. I understand that chain of
okay.
custody.
Okay.
So
Do you ever compare that evidence? Do you ever have cases where you've got similar evidence and compare A with B to see if there's any similarities, even down to the time of day, moon phase, that sort of thing? You ever compare
sometimes,
those two?
yeah, sometimes depending on the location, or even if it's, we investigate everywhere from northern Wisconsin to
Mhm.
southern Illinois. We've been,
Mhm.
and we've been all over the United States, actually.
Mhm.
But yeah, if there's some things that we, ring a bell that's similar, yeah, we'll go back and look at, this location and see if it's anything similar, if it kind of the same sounds or what time of day, that type of
Mm.
thing. Yes.
Do you share this information? Obviously, you can't always share names, but would you share data with other teams?
If asked, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
As long as it's not a confidential file. Yes. Because again, we respect
understood.
that very, very, very much.
Well, even if you didn't give a name, let's say some team, and I have my vision of how this can occur, but a team,
Hmm.
say down here in Florida, experiences something that you did, would you share that information to see if
Sure.
there's any correlation between the two?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, because I think that's super important too, because sharing information is the only way we're gonna, I think, end up solving this mystery.
Absolutely. And I'm not a big fan of, you've been in law enforcement. I've been in the fire service of the whole knowledge is
Yeah,
power. I'm not a
yeah.
fan of that. I am all about let's help each other, and my goal is to teach people to take over my job when I'm gone.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I've always lived my life in the fire service. Having been a chief officer or a firefighter or whatever, that's how I've always done it. Is I want to train the next guy to take over my job and pick up where I left off.
Where do you where do you see us going? We're getting ready to come up on our last break here, but where do you
Sure.
see us going right now? Do you see us as a field? And I've just had a guest on not too long ago that didn't like using the term field, but those of us that are doing this, do you see if we're ever going to get better?
Honestly, Larry, I hope we do. Um, but there's just this. I'm all for the para unity statement. I'm all for it, but there's
Ego,
just so much.
ego.
Honestly, the word is backstabbing.
Yeah,
Oh my God, it's I know this or I've done this or that guy doesn't do anything. What are we doing? You
yeah.
know?
Well, I got to put you on hold here because we got to
Sure.
take our last break, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Plus, I'm going to talk to you about what you think this whole thing is. What is What is it we're experiencing? And we'll talk about that right after these messages, folks. So stay with us.
Welcome to Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson. Indian River County is an idyllic vacation spot on Florida's east coast, not far south of Cape Canaveral. Known as part of the state's famed Treasure Coast, many are unaware of the deep and fascinating history this area played in the development of the Sunshine State. Also lost among its visitors and residents are the chilling stories of the hauntings that accompany this rich history. It is here that a man named Waldo still looks after his family and properties, 6 decades after his death. Or a retired preacher is seen digging up his hidden treasure, days after he died. Larry Lawson spent more than 40 years in the law enforcement and criminal justice education profession. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Nova Southeastern University and a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University. He serves on the board of directors of the Indian River County Historical Society, is the director of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and is the owner of Indian River Hauntings, LLC, where he provides historical and paranormal tours and events. He has been actively researching the history and paranormal legends of the Treasure Coast of Florida since 2010. Larry is currently the host of Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and the past host of Encounters with the Other Side on WPSL Radio in Fort Pierce, Florida. Pre-order your copy of Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson on Amazon.com today.
And we are back, and as always, this show goes so fast. Interesting conversation I'm having with my guest, BRYAN MEISINGER. If you want to check us out, once again, paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com. Check us out on Facebook at Indian River Hauntings 2341. Check out all my other shows here at paranormalstakeout.org and all the other great programs on this network at the X-Zone Radio and TV broadcast network at xzoneradiotv.org or xzbn.net. And send me a message at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org if you've got anything you'd like to share with us. And BRYAN, if folks want to find out a little bit about you and what your team is doing, what's the best place to do that?
So we do have a Facebook page. It's US Paranormal Research. And then we also have a website, usparanormalresearch.com, which is currently in the phases of being rebuilt as an individual deleted it, and we'll leave it at that. So I had to rebuild the whole page, but it's in the process. And you can reach us on that page. We have a connection page or contact page on there that you can get to us. It goes right to our emails.
And check them out there. They do a lot of great stuff up there in northern Illinois. So let's get back to this ego thing. And I'll just share my personal thought here. That has been the biggest thorn in our side of progressing. And I mean, we've got people out there that like to do it for fun. I get that. But there's a lot of folks out there that profess to be researchers and wanting to find the answers. But it just seems to me that ego always seems to get in the way. They don't want to share information. They're afraid somebody's going to maybe get the shot at the TV show. I don't know.
Right.
But it just seems like that has been one of the biggest thorns in our side. That and the few out there that are frauds, I might add.
Oh yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
So like I was saying, the ego thing, I don't understand the whole I'm better than you mentality, or somebody's, intimidated or afraid of you're doing something. And it's like, why would you be happy for that individual? And why can't you, boost them up and share their information and be like, hey, this group is doing this to help, a charity event, which we've done a couple of charity events for our local high school, things like that. It's like, we're doing this to help raise money. We're not doing it because we're look at me, and we've had a couple individuals in the area just cut us down about it. And it's like, what are you doing?
Well, and here's the other thing, especially for those lots of folks in this field. I profess that there are no experts out there.
Absolutely agree with
Anybody
you
that tells you
100%.
anybody that tells you they know exactly what's going on are either lying to you, themselves, or a little bit of both. Because there are
Yes.
no experts in this field. None of us have the answers yet,
It's a guess at best.
at best.
Absolutely.
And until we get a better way of collecting evidence, and I like the way you do things, but let's face it, it's flawed. We can't use the true scientific method because we
Right.
can't repeat what we get very often. So
Right.
it's just difficult to actually move forward sometimes, and ego is a big part of it. And like I said, there are no experts.
Right.
But I will ask you the question as if you were an expert. This next question.
All
What do
right.
you think this is? What do you think this phenomenon is? Ghosts.
Well,
What are they, in your opinion? And I realize it's just your opinion.
yes, in my opinion. So the way I look at it is, throughout history, people have talked about ghosts. The Bible talks about ghosts. Throughout history, there's been kings and heads of state and queens, and you name it, talk about seeing ghosts
Hmm.
for thousands of years.
Hmm.
When people talk about it for thousands of years, in my opinion, there's something to it. As
Agree.
you know, we're nothing more than a battery. It's a human shell. We're energy, and energy doesn't cease to exist. It merely changes shape, form, and function. It's got to go somewhere. Now, whether that is again, no experts, whether it's a interdimensional shift, whether it be the heaven hell
Okay.
aspect, or if it's a time shift, even I can't even begin to tell you what it is, because again, not an expert, have no idea. Um, I understand things on fire. That's what I know. I'm a fireman, so um, who knows what it could be? And honestly, that anybody who tells you, like you said, is an expert, I know what this is, they're full of crap, for the lack of a better chain. In my opinion, again, it's energy. It changes form. It changes shape. How it does that and where it goes, I can't answer that. I
Mm.
wish I could, but
But do you have an opinion? You saw your grandmother. You
I
saw that couple at that accident scene.
did.
What's your gut telling you? I'm not trying to pin you down to a
No,
definitive
no, no,
answer.
no.
I know you don't know for sure, but what does Brian Meisinger think this is?
I think there's a better place than where we currently are,
Okay.
that the energy moves to. That's just my opinion. Whether you want to call it heaven, Shangri-La, Eden, whatever your name for it is.
Hmm.
I think that energy moves on from this physical form into a different form and goes to a place where it can come back and manifest. Um, and I find it interesting that both of my events were situations where those entities and or those spirits, energy, whatever you want to call them, came back to help or to console and let you know that things are going to be okay.
Hmm.
Um, as far as the malevolent side of it, I've seen that. I don't know what to do with that.
Hey.
Thank God I've only seen it one time in 14 years, um, and I hope to never see it again. To be real honest, what I saw
Mhm.
at that home was very disturbing to me. Um, but ultimately, I think it's just energy is imparted into structures, locations, places, and it's something that they loved or they want to be a part of or they're very proud of. You've investigated historical societies in your area, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
As you know, they tend to be a high energy place, especially with the military side of things. And you got your fire service and police and your founding fathers of these towns. There's a lot of energy imparted into those items that they were very proud of. Whether it be the military ribbons, the badge, whatever the case may be. And you were a policeman. I'm a fireman. The day you get pinned with that badge, that's huge in your life. That's a big
Mhm.
step in your life. And I think a lot of energy sticks with that item. And if it goes somewhere else, you may be inclined to want to be a part of that.
Well, then here's another question for you. You've heard the term residual versus intelligent haunt or sentient
Hmm.
non-sentient. A residual haunt, that energy stored in something that causes a
Playback.
A vision. Okay, playback, exactly. Is that really a ghost? Is that really a spirit? Is that really the entity of what was there before, or is it merely a facsimile, a videotape?
I
What
think
is
you
it?
hit it on the head. I think it's a recording
Mhm.
because a residual seems to keep doing the same thing over and over, right? Walking
Mhm.
through where there used to be a door, and they see them do the same actions, same movements, right? I think that tends to be a recording, depending on whether, and again, in my opinion, granite is a great energy conductor. Silicas, water movement, that type of thing. We see some of those residuals on places that are like where I'm at in Northern Illinois, huge deposits of granite and whatnot.
Mhm.
We see a lot of activity between here in Milwaukee and Chicago, huge deposits of granite and sandstone. I think that has a lot to do with it. The intelligent haunt, in my opinion, is that entity is in its realm, but there's maybe a thin spot in the veil, as it were, where it can come back in contact with us and let us know something. Like my grandmother is a great example, or the two
Yeah.
individuals in that car accident. It's like, hey, there's somebody hurt over here who needs help. And my grandmother she never said a word, but I just knew it was reassuring that my daughter was going to be okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's just
well,
kind of my views.
let's talk a little bit about another theory that's bouncing around out
Mhm.
there, dimensions. And is there a connection between ghosts, UFOs, and cryptids because of some sort of dimensional shift? Are you familiar with those theories that are out there
Mhm.
right now? And what are your thoughts?
So I've heard the theories anywhere from dimensional shift to the flat Earth, where there's lands beyond the ice wall. That those could be where the UFOs come from. I've heard that Bigfoot is a interdimensional being. I have a very good friend who hunts Bigfoot locally by me,
Mhm.
and I've actually been out in these areas with him, and some strange things have happened. And I've had people tell me, "Well, that didn't happen." It's like, okay, well, you weren't there. I know what happened. When you're walking in the trails at night and there's only two of you and something throws a rock at you, rocks just don't fly by themselves. Something had to throw it.
Mhm.
So yeah, whether I think that there's always that possibility. Again, if anybody tells you they're the expert, they're not. I think anything is possible at this point. I mean, there's so much we're discovering every day between the Mandela effect, as it were. You've heard that.
That's a
Um,
whole nother
Oh, that's
show
a
on that.
whole discussion. Yes, but between that, the things that have changed since the CERN collider has gone online,
Mhm.
whether it be interdimensional transportation, whether it be the UFOs that can shift between different parallels, universes, that type of thing.
Mhm.
Again, it's a guess at best. It's a theory at best. Unfortunately, I wish I had the answers because I'd be worth a fortune, but I don't have the answers. So these are my opinions. So
And that's why we search, isn't it? Just to
yes,
try and find those answers. And you
yes.
said something earlier that really struck a chord with me. You'd mentioned being in the field, the public service field, the first responder field. You tend to, after a while, after you've been doing this for a while, your mind
Mhm.
tends to open up because we've just seen some things we
Right,
can't explain.
right.
And one joke I always like to talk about it, I carried a gun and badge for 40 years, passed all my psychs. They never took the gun away, so I
Right.
must be somewhat sane. Yet I know what I've seen. I
Well, yeah,
I know what I've seen, and I know what thousands have seen, and because we've heard the stories. So that means there's got to be something going on,
yes,
whether it's our own mind, the powers of our own brain, whether it's something we have yet to discover. We just don't know what it is yet, but keeping that
yeah.
open mind's important.
Well, and you joked about the psych test, and we always joke in the firehouse. If everybody says, "Oh, I took a psych test," or "I passed a psych test," and my joke is always, "No, no, I took one. I haven't seen the results, um, so I can't confirm nor deny." So, um, and as you know,
Oh,
we're a different breed of people. So,
yeah, that we are. And it's funny, we tease the firefighters and the cops tease each other, but
yes,
when it comes down to it, we've got each other's back.
absolutely,
So
100%.
so in our last 30 seconds or so,
Sure.
what's the future hold for US Paranormal?
So, U.S. Paranormal, the future. we do have a team trip coming up, which is nice. We do that once a year as a group. We go to a location and investigate, and we're working on doing some fundraising stuff with our local high school again to help raise some money for them.
Good for you. Good for you.
That's something we enjoy doing. We've done it for about 4 years, so it's a good time. So
good. Well, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. It was a
Absolutely.
great show. Thank you so much. Good luck in your last 17 months. Stay safe. And folks, thank you for joining us tonight on Paranormal Stakeout. Remember to hug those kids, love your family, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night.